Sneakers and Cleats, the podcast.
Welcome back to the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. It is January 13th, Monday. This is episode 163. Chuck McCarthy, Don Harris, Matt Roy on tap. We have some breaking news this Monday. Mike McCarthy out as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. News we've all been kind of waiting for to see if he was going to stay or go, and now it is officially official, I guess, that he is out in Big D. We haven't yet heard from the Cowboys, but that is all the news coming out so far. Guys, how was the weekend before we get started?
Awesome weekend. Married off my niece, McKenna. Big family wedding. It's always good to have all the family come into town. Great time.
Awesome. Chuck, you and I spent a lot of time together this weekend.
We did. It was a lot of fun.
How did the All-Star game go?
It was very good, very competitive, both games. I mean, the Navy game went down to the last play of the game. And, you know, I know we've talked about this before. The competitiveness and guys bawling out as if it was their last high school playoff game in the San Antonio Sports High School All-Star game presented by Valero. It's always the same every year. These guys act like this game means something, and it was really, really fun in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Being up there calling it with Chuck was a lot of fun. It was a really good game, too. And in the All-American Bowl, both touchdowns scored by San Antonio kids. So
I saw, before I went out for the wedding, I saw the Jalen Cooper 80-yard one.
Yeah, 91 yards.
Yeah, who scored the other one?
Ty Hawkins.
Cool.
Ty Hawkins, he obviously doesn't go to Johnson anymore, but IMG Academy.
Did they win?
Going to SMU. The West team won. Larry Hill's squad won.
Cool.
So Larry Hill and 7 other coaches on that staff.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got a lot to get to. There's going to be no trivia today because we're going to talk about all angles of the McCarthy being out as Cowboys head coach. So let's get right into it. McCarthy was 49-35 as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. We'll talk about it from all angles, both McCarthy angle and Cowboys angle, and maybe who replaced him. Let's start with the Cowboys. We went over the timeline on Thursday. You say go out and talk to people, and then you deny him the ability to go interview for the Bears head coaching job last week, indicating you might want to keep him. And now today it comes out that you really had no discussions over a contract at all, depending on which reports you read. Adam Schefter and some of the higher-ranking insiders are saying that literally no contract negotiations were ever went down, and that Mike McCarthy was never even offered a contract. My take on it is, you look at this. This is just another case of mismanaging a situation, and frankly, I thought it was embarrassing how Jerry handled this situation. To deny and be petty and not let your head coach, who you maybe even knew you weren't going to want to re-sign, go out and find another job and just kind of hold him hostage like this. It's mismanagement, and it's just bad business of the highest order.
Well, I think you're assuming a couple things there. If that's true, yes. It could also be that Chicago wanted to force the timeline, and Jerry had the right with the exclusive negotiating window to say, hold on, there's a good chance you might get to interview him, but it's not going to be for the next 5 or 6 days, because I need to sit down with Mike McCarthy, and we need to go through a lot of things, right? They have to go through what they're going to do. Like, and you're McCarthy too, right? He's got his own leverage, and he wants answers from Jerry. If I'm Jerry, I want to know what your plan is for this offense with Dak Prescott going forward, because we were just 3-6 with Dak Prescott. What your plan is with your staff. Who did you think did a great job? Who do you want to bring back? Who do you not want to bring back? If I'm McCarthy, I want to know, what do you plan to do with this roster, Jerry? Are you planning on upgrading this roster? Because I might have a chance to go to Chicago or New Orleans, and I don't want to coach a bad team. So do you have plans on standing pat, or are you going to get me a running back and some defensive linemen, offensive linemen, whatever? And are you going to pay my assistant coaches? They negotiate over the assistant pool, the money that's going to be there for assistants. He's got a lot of coaches on his staff that he's got to look out for too. So they're probably handling those things for those 4 or 5 days. Okay, do we agree on enough for me to come back? And I think maybe they even got to that point where they did. We heard last week at the end of the week that they've kept talking and they agreed to a bunch of different things. And now it's time to get with Don Yee, who says, I want 4 or 5 years. And Jerry says, no way. And it's over just like that, because he's got leverage.
But they said they never got it. Adam Schefter's reporting, they never even started negotiating a contract, which means that the years didn't come into play.
No. What I heard was from two different sources, the length of the contract was the issue that things fell apart.
What do you want him to do? Sign 1 year again?
That's what I'm saying. Jerry might have thought we can talk this way through, and then I'll give you 1 year with an option or 2 years with an option. And
no one would ever take that.
Of course not. But if you're Jerry, I don't blame Jerry. He was on a prove it or lose it deal this year, and he didn't prove anything. And I know you can say about all the injuries, but they were 3-6 when they had Dak Prescott. So Chuck said it better than anybody 3 weeks ago. It looks like it's better for these two people, no fault of their own, to go their separate ways. McCarthy's got options. He can go coach a young quarterback in Chicago with a lot of set cap space and this stuff not hanging over his head. Jerry, 5 years, we didn't do anything. It's time for a fresh start.
Yeah, I mean, how do you look at this? You know, I see a lot of people saying, you know, like Matt, what you said about, you know, they muddled the situation up. They should have let him talk to. Why is it incumbent for Jerry to go help out somebody else's team in their coaching search when he isn't breaking any rules? It's what's written in McCarthy's contract. He's let it go this far. Why not let it go the rest of the way? So I'm not necessarily sure that I would side on the part where they've really made things hard on Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy's going to be just fine. He's probably going to have multiple offers the way this turns out, I would think, you know, and that could be wrong too, because I'm just simply spitballing here. But based on what he did this year, which was he had a year to, as you say, prove it. And I think he did prove it. When this roster was at its worst, again, McCarthy was at his best, managing games, winning ball games, went into the year with a running back situation that was really, really in flux. They found themselves a running back, the Cowboys did. But now what does this roster look like next year? And what does the coaching staff look like next year? I mean, if you're McCarthy, you've got essentially no defensive lineman back. You've got linebackers that may or may not play next year because of health reasons. You've got arguably your best corner, Jordan Lewis, who's a free agent. I mean, how do you walk into a multi-year contract situation if you're McCarthy and that's what you're asking for, with all this nebulous stuff going on, with what this team may or may not look like, and not decide you at least want to test the free agent coaching waters? I mean, again, Chicago, nice-looking young quarterback. You know, I don't know what their cap situation is off the top of my head, but I would imagine it's a lot better than the Cowboys. Same with the Saints. So both of these entities, the Cowboys and Mike McCarthy, are in a spot where McCarthy now has a chance to go somewhere and team build like he's very, very good at and proven time and time again that he can do, whether that's winning a Super Bowl or not. He does have one. And now we'll see what Jerry wants to do, because it appears now they're really going to flip this thing on its ear. I mean, you're talking about McCarthy probably taking most, if not all, of his staff with him to wherever it is that he's going next. And you have 22 free agents and a lot of them really good players. It's going to be a really wild offseason, man.
And don't underestimate New Orleans. I'm old enough to remember, so is Chuck, that when Katrina came and the Saints came to San Antonio, Mike McCarthy was their offensive coordinator.
That's where he got to start his play calling.
Yeah, so he's
got a
long history with Mickey Loomis and the Benson family. So
we're gonna get to the McCarthy side of this in a second.
Okay.
When it comes to the Cowboys, though, I don't understand how you can look at the situation and think that this went down in any other way except a Bush League incompetent, petty, dumb way. Like he said, the hay is in the barn when it comes to the coaching staff. So that means that, and that was before the season even ended. That means that the last game had no, bearing on how he felt about his coaches, and that he already knew exactly how he felt about all these guys and if he wanted to bring McCarthy back or not. Which means that the week of negotiating or talks that they just had really meant nothing. What were you guys talking about? If you already know exactly how you feel about your coaching staff, what they did was
Well,
they put themselves behind the 8 ball. You now can't talk to Ben Johnson or Aaron Glenn or Cliff Kingsbury or any of these other guys until after their playoff run ends. You've put Mike Vrabel is now off the market. If you had indicated at all that you were going to have a head coaching opening, you might have had a chance at a Bill Belichick before he took the UNC job.
But don't you think Jerry's smart enough to know that in advance and he's not interested in
No,
Bill
at this point I
Belichick?
don't.
Okay. I think Jerry knows what he wants to do. I think the hay was in the barn. I think he was very impressed with McCarthy and his coaching staff. I think they did have to discuss some things going forward. And then when they started to talk turkey about years and length, that's where it broke down. I could be wrong, but that's my guess.
It just seems like it does. And I told you this on Thursday. It's not a way to handle a business like this. It's like, yes, you basically kept your team, your franchise in the headlines for another week. Congratulations. But what you did was you set your own franchise back because you can't get a head start on getting another head coach when it seems like he already knew that this was the move he wanted to make.
Can you not get another head coach? I mean, or have your guys talking to the head coach's agents? I mean, there are ways around these things, and maybe there are better ways to handle it. I don't know. It's not my business, and I'm not in the inner sanctum to see exactly how all this went down. But I guarantee you that even probably midway through this season, that Jerry Jones had an eye on next year and that there was a plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G for if McCarthy's not here and the staff isn't here, what is this going to look like? I guarantee you there's not just, like us spitballing what's going on. I mean, there's been a plan for what's going to happen if this happens. And I mean, so I would disagree in that, we don't know that they haven't done all this stuff. I would argue that they have already come up with a plan A, B, C, and D.
But
and
Chuck,
it's just a matter of executing.
But Chuck,
at this point.
if that's the case, if this was the plan, if this was one of the plans, A, B, C, D, or F, or Z, or whatever it was, how can you look at this and say this was a good plan?
Wait till see who he hires. I mean, we don't know that Don Yee, wink, wink, nod, nod, for the last week and a half has been talking to Chicago and New Orleans and knew exactly what they had in their pocket going forward. And so when Jerry says we'll go 3 years, he goes 5, and Jerry says no way. Then he says done. McCarthy may know what he's got in his pocket in one of those two places. So that's from McCarthy's side. And on Jerry's side, Jerry could very well know Belichick goes to North Carolina. I don't care. I wasn't interested in him anyway. Vrabel goes to New England. I don't care. I wasn't interested in him anyway. I want Dion, or I want Cliff, and whoever,
Dion.
right? Whoever. So Cliff, Ben Johnson, whatever. Ben Johnson can't talk to anybody until
he did interviews last week.
Okay. Well,
because the two teams that have the buys, you could have interviewed, Matt Nagy, Steve Spagnuolo, Aaron Glenn.
Don't you think Jerry can call his agent and say, "Hey, I know you're interviewing with the other teams. Hang on, give us a chance later."
Why on God's green earth would Ben Johnson do that?
I don't know.
He can't interview. I mean, if the Lions make the Super Bowl, he can interview during that week off of the Pro Bowl week, or he interviews once the season's over.
He may not be interested in the Cowboys. Cowboys may not be interested. What I'm saying is, and I get it, but I think that's the hot take. Everybody jump on Jerry's case. Everybody jump on McCarthy's case. Until this thing plays out, we don't know what they know behind the scenes. I don't think it's a bad plan for Jerry now there's a chance it is. There's a chance you're very right. And we look at this thing a week from after they make their hire and go, wow, he blew it because he could have had that guy. But Jerry may already know he wants Doug Peterson.
This is the most valuable franchise on planet Earth. Do you know anybody, like if this was a baseball opening, that would turn down the Yankees job if the Yankees job came open? I mean, if they've earmarked somebody or a number of guys, there's not going to be anybody that turns this job down that's available.
I don't know about that.
There's a lot of people that can coach this team.
Ben Johnson's going to have his pick of jobs. And if you're between the Jets and the Cowboys, I would go with the Cowboys 100% because Woody Johnson's a worse owner than Jerry Jones is.
I think there's a very good chance they already know they're going to get Kellen Moore.
They might. Kellen Moore is on the table, but you also can't talk to him. None of the guys that are
I can't believe Kellen Moore would be a head coaching candidate in Dallas. I know that's out there too, but I mean, they essentially burned that bridge down when he's now in Philadelphia calling plays and doing a pretty good job there. But I would be hard pressed to see
I just
that.
find it hard to believe.
If you're married to Dak Prescott, right?
Not if you are.
Yeah, and you can't get divorced ever. Who makes Dak most comfortable? Kellen. But that doesn't mean he's be the best head coach. I agree with you there. And you're right. They burned that bridge because McCarthy had to call plays.
McCarthy will be out now, though. So, I mean, the bridge isn't burned anymore.
There's a bunch of different ways they could go. They're all going to be fun. They go the young, hot OC route with Johnson or Kingsbury or Kellen. They could go with the old school
Gruden.
Jesus.
I guess.
Chucky.
I guess they could.
Dude.
Well, I mean, what's Jerry's big criteria?
Well, he's going to want more money than $8 million a year. So,
well, nobody has more, like everything that Gruden said that is, cancelable for life in his emails or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
Jerry's got more skeletons than that.
Yeah, but
putting Gruden aside, within the last
a whole other story.
Within the last year or so, there's been multiple different times when Jerry has made questionable moves, to say the least. Bringing McCarthy back on his 1-year deal was a questionable move. Not spending anything in free agency, basically sitting out free agency, saying he's all in while sitting out free agency, a questionable move. Waiting,
giving Dak the big contract.
Well, I was going to say waiting until the first day of the season to make Dak the highest paid quarterback, highest paid player in NFL history. This how the CD saga went down, how Micah saga is going down. Every move is questionable to the point where we're questioning whether this is a guy with a plan or if it's a guy that is just cheap and doesn't really understand what he's doing at this point.
No move.
How can you be cheap when he just gave out the biggest contract in NFL history?
They sat Cooper Rush the last week of the season so they didn't have to pay his incentive.
Not necessarily true.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know that they're not going to go ahead and give him that money anyway. I mean,
a lot of times
what I'm saying is
see also to, what the third string quarterback could do too. There was no reason not to, and good on him for giving that kid a chance to get some tape. So
all I'm saying is if you're a fan of the Dallas Cowboys, how do you look at this past year and have any confidence in your organization at all?
It's a mess. There's no question it's a mess, but no move was more questionable, not than waiting, but by giving Dak that money.
But also waiting made it even more of a fiasco, made it more of a circus.
Yeah.
Chuck and
I both like to sit here and think, had he done what he said he was going to do and not sign McCarthy and go all in, then McCarthy plays out like it did today. And if he would have made Dak prove it, because remember right before training camp, he goes, he could get hurt. We could have a bad season. There's a lot of things that could happen. But then he caved. But had he not given Dak that money, Dak gets injured in year 9 with ripping another hamstring off the bone after the ankle. Would Jerry sign Dak today to a big deal?
No.
Now that he's starting over with a new coach.
He would not.
So you may have to do like the Denver Broncos did, right? Try to flip this thing quickly with 80-something million dead cap money.
91 million.
I was watching the playoff games this weekend.
Let's not comment on the Broncos.
No. I thought about this, though. and I don't want to be too hard on Dak, right? Because Dak is a good quarterback. As I'm watching these teams and I'm looking at the future of these teams, I'm thinking, are the Cowboys better off than Washington with Kingsbury and Daniels? Are they better off than Tampa Bay with Baker? Are they better off the winners and the losers? Certainly not Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, but even Denver, that kid's impressive. Bo Nix was impressive, even, in the loss. You're not going to, are they better off than San Diego with, Los Angeles with
Justin Herbert?
With Herbert. Certainly not Stroud. And I'm thinking, they need a revamp. And if Dak's going to be your guy, then they need a different mind in there changing that offense.
Yeah, you're married to Dak now, though. You can't get rid of him for at least 2 years. So,
right.
So you're married to Dak, and whoever the head coach is going to have to get the best out of Dak.
Right.
So,
talk about
on that note,
talking about a better mind. A refrain in the comments is the GM. Can you explain the GM situation?
That's never going to change.
It's never going to change.
I mean, just explain it.
Jerry Jones owns the team. He bought the team to run the team. He's going to run the team until the day he dies.
And even when he does die, Stephen Jones takes over. So
Steven may be different. Steven might hire a GM someday.
I was listening to the ending press conference outside of the locker room after the loss to the Commanders. And everything sticks in my mind when he says, every good decision's mine, every bad decision's Steven's. So, well, he'll always be trying to take the credit anyway, as much as a joke as that was.
Yeah.
Bob, anything else in the comments for now?
One of my favorites was from Josh, who says McCarthy will be back in Dallas beating the Cowboys.
Probably. Do they play the Bears next year?
Or the Saints.
Or the Saints?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I can't remember the opponents off the top of my head.
Mindy said, as a Redskins fan, I don't even know if you're allowed to say that. I hope Cliff doesn't move to the Cowboys.
I personally wouldn't want Cliff. Let's go to the McCarthy side of this. So Mike McCarthy, in my opinion, and we don't know everything, got kind of held hostage by this. But if you're him, I don't know if you would have wanted to come back anyway.
It's exactly why he's not coming back.
I mean, if you're going to be second guessed at every move and you have to live through this circus every single day, I mean, Chicago's not going to be much better. They're the third biggest media market in the country, but you don't have all the eyeballs on you like you do in Dallas. So why wouldn't you want to go to a New Orleans or a Chicago or even the Jets at that point, which is all less of a circus than the Dallas Cowboys are?
I don't know. I mean, there's some of that, but I get the sense too that McCarthy kind of enjoyed the fact that he was the point man most days. I think he kind of grew into that, in terms of his way of sharing information. I think also it proved to him in a lot of ways. I mean, if you can deal with what he's dealt with, and it's a lot different than coming from Green Bay, man, when you're, working in a town that's got 200,000 people. Yeah, the brand is big, but the demands on you and the media attention. I mean, Mike McCarthy is going to be absolutely bulletproof after this time in Dallas. So I don't know. I just find it super fascinating that when did this flip? Mid-season, there wasn't one person that wanted Mike McCarthy back as head coach, right? They're sucking. Now Dak is hurt. Well, they were sucking anyway with Dak. This is going nowhere quickly. There's no hope. Everything is lost. Jerry's an idiot. McCarthy's an idiot. Everybody's an idiot. Everybody sucks. Blow it up. And now we went from this to now all of a sudden the uproar that McCarthy's not back. So
I don't think it's uproar that McCarthy's not back. I think it's uproar in the way that it was handled. If on Monday last week, just for example, if they came out and were like, you know what, Mike McCarthy and I are separating, are parting ways, and he's going to go be a head coach somewhere else. We thank him for everything that he's done, yada yada. I don't think there would be any issue with that. The fact that you waited a week and set yourself behind the 8 ball and really handled it in a way that was questionable at best.
I don't know. I'm not bothered by it at all. They had to talk about things.
They couldn't have talked before the season was over?
I don't know. I got the sense last week that there was a genuine sense. There were multiple reports on different days that there was a genuine sense that the two guys were figuring out a framework on how this could continue, and that both were open to it. And then I think when it got down to brass tacks, McCarthy had leverage that Jerry necessarily didn't consider, or that, knew that it could bite him at the end. But at the end of the day, it's the not getting the extension is the greatest thing that ever happened to Mike McCarthy, because he has leverage. He's got a job already. I guarantee you he's got the Saints or the Chicago job already in his back pocket, and knew that and had that as a leverage and a negotiating thing, so that when Jerry came up with years and if you're a Cowboys fan, we don't want Jerry to give McCarthy a 5-year deal. Nobody wants that, right? I mean, what has he done? I know Chuck's a big fan, and I am too. He with a bad roster, he proved he can motivate guys, and they'll run through a wall for him.
I mean, he has the 4th highest winning percentage in
they'll
the
run through a wall
history.
for him. But they were awful against Green Bay in the playoffs. They completely botched the 2-minute drill against San Francisco in the playoffs. They were not a good playoff team. They never won anything in the playoffs. And that's the standard in Dallas. I'm not ripping Mike McCarthy. I think he's a very good coach. I think it's just time for something different.
But if that's your standard, why not do this last year?
True. I said it last year.
I know. I think we all said Mike McCarthy should move on after last year because last year was the thing that will stick with his tenure in Dallas. You have everything lined up for you. You have Green Bay at home, young quarterback, rookie quarterback who's never made a playoff start. He comes in and kills you. 27-zip. They were never in the ballgame. 48-32.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different.
So if that's the way, if that was the the final straw for Mike McCarthy, then what the hell was this year?
Approve it year.
Approve what? What would Mike McCarthy had to have done?
They went into the season with a healthy Dak thinking they could win the Super Bowl.
With a worse roster than they had last season.
Jerry didn't think so.
Okay.
We all knew it was.
I don't know what to say.
Well,
They signed Ezekiel
look at how
Elliott.
many guys went down, they're paid guys, and then look how many guys stepped up. I mean, the roster was a little deeper, I think, if we're being fair, than what we might have given this team credit for at the beginning of the year. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, you're talking
No.
about with the guys like
Brock
Booth
Hoffman and
Brock Hoffman and
I mean, Booth got killed. What was the game where he was just destroyed play after play, and then oh god, what was the other guy's name that just got destroyed play after play? There was two corners that just got beat every time they took the field, and Andrew Booth was one of the guys that they traded for in August, and he just was horrible. But anyway,
14 get hurt early.
If you guys were
the linebacker / DB was good.
Marquise Bell,
Yeah.
Wanye,
Bell.
yeah, I think so. He spent some time on the.
a lot of people got hurt.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
throw a dart, they probably got hurt. If you were a Saints or a Bears fan, if you were a franchise out there looking for a head coach, would you be excited if your team hired Mike McCarthy?
Yes,
For
because I
sure.
think, and I think pretty much, except for the very end during his tenure in Green Bay, was that this team was always going to be knocking on the door. Just get to the tournament, and then maybe something magical will happen once you get there. Didn't always work out, obviously. And, even the year that McCarthy won the Super Bowl, I think he had 16 guys on IR that year. So you don't plan for some of these things to happen. Sometimes they just do. You catch some breaks. Maybe better teams get bounced accidentally somewhere else. It's really, really hard to win playoff games. It's hard to win Super Bowls unless you're the Chiefs. So,
I think when you hire a guy like McCarthy, though, what you're hiring is the guys underneath him, right? He brings in a better staff than almost anybody else can.
Well, he's a great organizer.
Yeah, I mean,
He builds an organization.
right. So if would a fan base in New Orleans be happy with making the playoffs every year? If you're the Bears, certainly you'd be happy with that kind of a team, a competitive team. And I think instantly he would bring some of that.
Yeah, I think if he's hired, in Chicago, I don't think you can get a better hire because you want someone who is going to bring your franchise out of the laughing stock.
Continuity. That's all you're looking for. I mean, something that looks like football week to week, or there's a culture that you can see visibly that runs through the screen.
And I think he did improve Dak Prescott as well. I mean, he is a good quarterback coach. If you're Chicago, you need someone who's going to make Caleb Williams a viable starting quarterback and not someone who ends up like Jamarcus Russell and is a bust. All the talent in the world, but just can't get things going. You need someone who can revive him and make him a viable starting quarterback. If you're New Orleans, you need a starting quarterback and you need someone who can resuscitate that offense. If you're the Jets, you need someone who can tell Woody Johnson to shut the hell up and actually get his son out of the locker room so he's not making personnel decisions. I think any organization like that out there would welcome Mike McCarthy with open arms. And if I was to tell you the Bears won 12 games, I think most Bears fans would take that.
Sure.
Especially where they are right
double
now.
digits, get me to 10 wins every year. I mean, what would you rather have? One championship and then, like if you're the Miami Marlins, right? You got 2 championships, but every other year you're a losing team. I would rather have a team that's knocking on the door every year with the hope that something might happen in the postseason than having 2 championships and 20 years of futility.
It's like what's going on with the Steelers right now. Like people are all like Mike Tomlin should be out of there. He makes the playoffs every year. He has a winning record every year just because he's lost 6 straight playoff games. The only Super Bowl winning head coach to ever to happen, by the way. That was going to be my trivia question today. I decided against it. But
Man, I'd like him in Dallas.
I mean, I would take Mike Tomlin to coach my team in a heartbeat. Great coach.
100.
Um,
And let me just
Yeah.
wrap up McCarthy by saying this.
Yep.
I think the reason Mike McCarthy is not in Dallas today might be more a Mike McCarthy decision than a Jerry Jones decision. By in no way, shape, or form was he fired. And I think he would have been back if he would have been okay with like a 2-year deal. Because if you're him, you're not going to take that because you got better offers. And if you're Jerry, in your right mind, you can't give him – the fan base would not accept Mike McCarthy coming back on another 5-year deal.
No.
Not after what his first 5 years.
no, you would have had to give him 4 at least.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
I think this is a McCarthy decision.
Yeah, and I think too,
I
you know,
think it's similar, but it's, I don't know.
he wants to run the football. He wants to be really good at running the football. He thinks running the football is going to make his quarterback even better. And then you got the play action and everything else. And going into this season, you know, for everything that's been said about what they did not have on the roster. So like he knows going in that he can't play the way that he wants to. And when they tried to, you know, everybody's yard per carry was 2.8 or whatever it was. And then you're behind the sticks. And so you can't, if you can't play the way you want to play in a system that you would really like to be in, and then there's some other opportunities out there where, you know, maybe you feel like you can do it better. I mean, that's part of the leverage situation.
All right, let's talk about who replaces him now. So Mike Vrabel obviously off the table, Bill Belichick off the table. We'll put those 2 names aside. If I was to just say, pick your ideal coach, doesn't matter what team they're on right now, doesn't matter their negotiating window, I don't care how realistic it is. Tell me who ideally in this situation you would pick if you were Jerry Jones and money wasn't an object. Who would you want as the Cowboys head
Or who
coach?
do we think Jerry would?
No, I want who you personally would choose as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys today. Who do you think is the most ideal candidate for this job?
Even if you can't get him?
I mean, who are you thinking?
Well, I mean, Andy Reid.
Okay, well, take him out. Realistic. Let's make it a little bit more realistic. Guys that you might be able to get.
Man, it might be what just came up in the last 3 minutes. Mike Tomlin, if he's out in Pittsburgh.
Would you trade for Mike Tomlin?
Jerry won't.
If you were Jerry
don't
Jones,
have
would you
anything
trade
to
a first round pick for Mike
No,
Tomlin?
I mean, you're assuming to me, and that's whenever you hear these coaching things, it always seems a little weird, as if there is only one guy that could do this job.
Yeah.
You know, there are other talented guys. Part of, you would think, being in the Cowboys organization is you're trying to recognize guys that are on the way up. But again, you know, he hired McCarthy because he won a Super Bowl. And I hate to keep throwing out Chucky out there, but Chucky won a Super Bowl too. He worked with Al Davis. He's worked with gregarious owners that had their fingers all
Can
in
he have a job again?
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Can he actually,
I don't know.
he wants one. I know he wants one. He said that on multiple
Yeah, and the
occasions.
machine is behind him too. I find it very fascinating how
The
much he's on
machine.
my Twitter feed.
Well, he
Yeah.
works for Barstool now, and they're blowing him up everywhere.
Yeah.
I
the machine.
don't know if he can get, if he would be I think he would be accepted. Because all the stuff is like now behind him with all the emails that he sent out and the slurs and whatnot that were in his emails and all that stuff. Ideally, I think it's an offensive guy. I don't know if they want to go old or young. I don't know if they want the Ben Johnson, the hot shot
I'm with you,
dude,
That's what I'd like to know.
or if they want to go
Because
John
I'd go get
Gruden.
one of the coordinators from Detroit. Take your pick. I'd
Either
take
one.
either one of those guys running
I'd
my
take
team.
either one of those or Cliff.
I don't want Cliff. Cliff didn't show me anything in Arizona.
I'm surprised Aaron Glenn doesn't.
Got him to the playoffs.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
He crumbled in the second half of every season that he coached.
He won more games than the year before. Every year he was in Arizona, and then had one bad year at the end, and then got fired.
Yeah, he sucks.
Cliff is great.
What were you saying, Bob?
I was wondering why Aaron Glenn doesn't get more run than he does.
I think he does.
He
He's
will.
interviewed for like 5
Yeah.
head coaching
Oh, has
jobs.
he? All right.
Yeah, he's interviewed for a lot. I think that the list that was on a couple of websites, people are putting out names now. Kellen Moore.
They need an offensive mind, not Aaron Glenn.
Yeah, Cliff Kingsbury.
Although I love Aaron Glenn.
Cliff Kingsbury, Ben Johnson, Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator for the Bills, who's done a great job. He was also the offensive coordinator of Joe Burrow and the LSU Tigers, who might have been the best college football team of all time in 2019.
Yeah, if he can bring Joe Burrow and those two receivers.
Yeah, Liam Cohn.
Now you're talking.
Liam Cohn, the offensive coordinator in for the Bucs right now. Brian Flores, DC in Minnesota. A really interesting name I thought was Pete Carroll.
Retread Central.
Yeah, but Pete Carroll,
Yeah.
also a guy that can build a culture, build a roster. I don't know how long Pete Carroll's going to be coaching. He's in his 70s. He's spry and young, and he's moving around.
Still amazing.
He's moving around for a 72-year-old, but he is not a spring chicken anymore. So I don't know how long you're going to have someone like that.
Does he want back in?
Yeah, well, he's taken a couple of interviews. But I just don't know the direction that they're going to go. Would you guys hire someone not old, but a retread that's established, has proven that he can do this job, or would you take a chance on a younger guy
I
like
think
a Ben
Jerry's
Johnson?
going to do the former. I think I've heard a lot about Doug Peterson being Jerry's guy, but
Did so well in Jacksonville.
yeah, or the horrifying one is Rex Ryan, who they loved when they interviewed for the DC job after.
I just can't believe that one would happen
It
either.
wouldn't
Can
happen.
you imagine? I mean,
It wouldn't happen.
gee.
Hey, Tom Guerrero's
Please
in the
no.
house.
Hey, Tom.
He's got a comment.
Shout out Tom Guerrero.
Even Don Harris can coach this team as long as he's a puppet for JJ.
Don, you want the job?
Well, Parcells wasn't, right? Jerry has experimented with letting a more established guy come in and do it. Wade, to a certain extent, did that early on before Jerry quickly castrated him. But,
Vivid imagery.
I think he'll go with a guy who's coached before.
I think so too. I don't see him going the route of hiring a young hotshot coordinator. Or, I mean, even Brian Flores, if he did hire Brian Flores, used to be a head coach in Miami and then obviously went through the whole racial lawsuit and all that stuff against the NFL. So I don't know how well that would be received here in Dallas either. But anyway, it's that he goes, it's going to be an interesting hire. Dion?
No.
Gosh, no.
I'll just say the word.
No.
Do you know Dion's the favorite in Vegas right now?
I did. Well, I don't
I
even think
know.
it's Vegas. I think it's an offshore book named Bovada. But yes,
Can you imagine if he has bodyguards at Colorado? What do you think it would be like in Dallas? I mean, again, we'll go back to the machine, man. What the machine is pumping out there right now is wow, man. Just wow.
we can all think about it. Jason Witten was another one that was floated around.
No.
Hey, he won a high school state championship. He can do this.
He won a TAPS, right?
I don't know. Yeah, I think it was TAPS. I think it was a private school in Dallas. But anyway, at this point, last question. Can Jerry make what decision can Jerry make that will inspire, one, the franchise, but two, the fans at this point? Like, is there someone in mind that like would make you excited?
Yeah, the DC or the OC from Detroit.
So if he
Ben
goes
Johnson
out,
would excite me.
if he goes out, spends $15 million a year to sign Ben Johnson as your head coach, and you give him full control of the football, not the players, but on the field, your personnel, you give him full control of everything that a head coach should have control of. You think that would be exciting?
Yeah, I don't think he'll take that job, but yes.
All right.
Yes, Ben would excite me. Aaron Glenn would excite me. Cliff Kingsbury would excite me.
You don't think
Matt
that the
Nagy.
OC from the Lions would take the Cowboy job if offered?
Oh,
If he,
the money he would take it. Yeah,
If I was
think he'd have better I think he would have. He's going to have offers where his roster isn't so hamstrung.
if I was to say,
Okay.
if you're Ben
But yeah,
Johnson,
if you have a chance to coach the Dallas Cowboys,
if you're Ben Johnson and you have the same exact offer from the Cowboys, the Bears, the Saints, and the Jets, which one are you taking at that point?
it's between the Cowboys and Bears because of that quarterback.
I would say the Bears only because you don't have Jerry. They can give you more personnel control in Chicago than you'll have here because Will McClay is always going to help make those decisions. Steven and Jerry are always
Will
going to have their
McClay's
hand.
up too, so we'll see. I mean, everybody's up. It seems like.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of change this offseason. That's for sure. All right, that's all we got for you today on the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. Remember, download,
I'm
rate, review,
exhausted.
subscribe.
We still have got 3 shows to produce.
Good luck with that. Subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, tell a friend, tell an enemy. I have to go take care of my sick wife. She had 103.5 fever yesterday.
Wow.
So I'm gonna go take care of her and then see if she's gonna get me sick. Hopefully she doesn't. See, I'm good. If anyone, it's gonna be him. He had to sit in a booth with me for 4 hours. So we'll see you guys on Thursday.
Scared.
Reminder: there is no show next Monday. It is Inauguration Day, and we have MLK March and whatnot here in San Antonio. So no show next Monday. We will have a show this Thursday and next Thursday.
On Inauguration Day is also MLK Day.
Yeah,
and it's also the national championship game of college football.
yeah, big day.
Wow.
That's how we're gonna end this. All right, go Rams tonight. We'll see you guys later.
Just think you should split up MLK Day from Inauguration Day.
I'm closing your mic.